journalist in Troy, warrant veterans in politics. And George Carson, I just want to let you know this microphone is getting really heavy in my hands. So well, we have Melanie Howard, who's a candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 14. And for disclosure, Melanie was the Veterans in Politics chapter president.
Yes.
For a while, and then she dropped out, and then she left us hanging, and
I moved on.
she moved on. Melanie, how you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Tell us a little bit about you.
My name is Melody Howard. I am a judicial executive assistant. I work for Judge Richard Scotti.
He's my buddy.
He's your buddy.
I love Judge Scotti.
Yes.
Judge Scotty's a good guy.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've been married to Matt for over 15 years.
Yarbo?
Yep, Matt
He's
Yarbo.
my buddy, too.
We've been together for 20. He raised my children, and he's a great man. Always a great man. I've been a legal assistant for probably the last over 30 years,
Right.
working in the field of law. My son is a disabled military vet. My daughter is in pre-med, and I am a U.S. Army Reserve vet.
Well, thank you for your service, Ms.
Thank you.
Howard. So, tell us where's District 14?
District 14,
where's that?
District 14 is from Nellis to Sloan.
Oh, you got Nellis.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Cary, the east side of Nellis.
Right.
And then basically Cary to Desert Inn.
What do you mean the east side? Is it different? East side, west side?
The east side of Nellis, because the west side of Nellis is a different district.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yours is almost rectangular, man.
So
Pretty close.
How would they vote? How would they vote, or do they vote?
They do vote. They vote Democrat for the most part. Maggie Carlton, actually no Republican has won that seat in over 35 years.
Now, what the heck are you doing? You just bored? Come back to veterans in politics. We'll busy you up.
Oh, yeah. I don't think any candidate should run unopposed.
Okay.
I agree with that.
I get that. Okay. So that's why you're doing. Are you learning anything? You walking, knocking on doors?
Well, I know my district is pretty much 51% Hispanic.
Right.
It has a lot of senior citizens. It's a much older community, but it's changing rapidly.
Right.
The crime rate is going up.
Right.
Graffiti is through the roof in just the last 6 months alone. I mean,
You need to get out of there. Come up to Summerlin area.
I am, actually. I will probably be having to withdraw, and unfortunately, as a result, Maggie Carlton will be running unopposed.
What do you mean you're going to withdraw? What does that mean?
My father-in-law's cancer is back,
I'm sorry to hear
and
that.
he has bone cancer, 3-term Vietnam vet.
Oh, my God.
And the good news is that they've given him a couple of years
To live.
to live. It's not going to be great years, but
Oh.
he does have a few more years to live, and he lives over by Aliante.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Melanie.
So we are buying a house
Over there.
over there so that he can be close to his dad and mom.
Didn't your husband, Matt, ran for the same seat?
He did. He actually,
Last session.
2014, and he got the highest percentage of vote against any Democrat in 35 years. He got 40% of the vote.
40.
Yeah, the average is anywhere from 20 to 25.
And he ran against Maggie at the same time?
Yes, he did.
Oh, so it was a husband and wife duel to try to take her out?
Yes. Actually, I was very naive
Right.
back in 2000, and Maggie is a personal pet peeve of mine.
But why you want to remove her? Why is that?
Again, back in 2000, 2001, I began homeschooling my daughter.
Okay.
And I got involved in the homeschool community, and we formed the Nevada Homeschool Network, which was an advocacy group
Okay.
for homeschoolers. And one of the requirements to homeschool in Nevada at that time was you had to have a sponsor.
Right.
Not knowing anybody that homeschooled, I hired a company
Okay.
to be my sponsor for a year. And they gave me 5 notebooks for my daughter, and I never heard from them again. These were supposedly teachers, retired teachers, who are there to help these kids if they have questions. And when the kids would, my daughter would call, they would never respond. So I wound up doing everything. Then we decided to homeschool my son in, I'm going to say May or so. So we put him out of school, went back to this place because I still didn't have my year in to be able to do it on my own. They gave me the exact same 5 notebooks for my son, who was in 6th grade, that they gave me for my daughter, who was in 4th grade.
What does that have anything to do with Assemblywoman Carlton?
Maggie Carlton, we had a meeting with the Board of Education to try and eliminate, go 2 years later, try to eliminate the homeschool sponsor portion of the legislation. And Maggie Carlton showed up with one of her constituents, who it was her business that did consulting, and it wasn't the same business, but it was a business. And Maggie Carlton basically got up and told the president of the Board of Education that she is Senator Maggie Carlton, and she knows absolutely nothing about homeschooling, doesn't even believe parents should be allowed to homeschool their children. However, she's here on behalf of her constituent, and this law needs to remain the same.
Wow.
So it's a memory that I still have very clearly, and when we moved into that district, I had no idea that she was my assembly person now. So when it came time for filing, Matt decided to run, and Matt didn't want to do it this year, so I did.
And I know you've been actively involved in the Republican Party for years, but what makes you qualified to be an assembly person?
Oh, gosh. True grit.
You're an American, right?
Yes.
You're a Las Vegan, right?
Yes, I've lived here for
There it is.
25 years. Thank you.
Hey, so, Noni, I know some of the listeners might not know what Steve said. You were actively involved in the Republican Party, but you've been more than active in the Republican Party. When I first met you in 2008, and I don't think I've ever said this to you privately or publicly, what an amazing job that you and Richard really did in 2008 to get the whole precinct captain program started, get it organized, because it was just amazing to me that how unorganized and how little people knew. So I just want to thank you personally for how much hard work that you and Richard really put into that, and really made some real big headway in the county party with that.
Thank you, I appreciate
that. And you guys spent a lot of personal time on it. We're not compensated for any of it. You did it in your own free will.
It's all volunteer.
Yeah.
The county party is strictly volunteers.
So you talked a lot about the homeschooling and all of that stuff. So I'm going to take it you're not a big fan of Common Core.
It's not that I'm a fan of I'm not a fan of Common Core or a fan of Common Core. I think it's a different approach to education that is not for all students. I am a firm believer that children should be taught by their ability and not by their age. Just because you're in 3rd grade, you should not be told you cannot do fractions because you have to wait until you're in 4th grade. It would be complicated without a doubt, but when I was in grade school, we had a pilot project, and this was in Los Angeles, and I lived in the barrio of Los Angeles. And this pilot program actually took 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and it was 25 students in each grade, and put them in one big classroom. So we had 75 students, 2 teachers. They tested everybody. They put everybody in workbooks that they were able to do. So if you tested at 1st grade math and 8th grade reading, you started at 1st grade math and 8th grade reading. You didn't have any other health and science and history, things of that nature, was a group class discussion. We were allowed to get up and help other students. We were allowed to actually even teach classes. If we found a way of getting a concept together that would help other students in our class, our teachers would actually put us up in front of the class and let us demonstrate exactly how it can be done. Education should be exactly that, education. We are not doing our children any favors by telling them that they can't learn a particular subject just because they're 8 years old.
See, I like her already, because that's been my whole thing. That's actually the reason why I even threw my hat in the ring back in 2014, is because the education in this state specifically sucks. What's your thought on the Department of Education at the federal level? Where I'm going with that is I believe it should be up to the states, and specifically to the teachers and the parents and the local communities to teach the children, not the feds.
Again, in Los Angeles, every city is its own school district.
Okay.
So I'm a strong supporter of breaking up Clark County Board of Education. It should
Me
be
too.
North Las Vegas, Henderson, Mesquite. We should have a child who is growing up poor does not have all the resources that a child who is middle class. Sometimes they're poor, even if they're homeless. They can learn, but they don't have the resources. They don't have the foundation. So teachers have to be allowed the discretion to be creative in the way that they teach different types of students. If you have a learning disability, you should be allowed to go to a charter school that specializes in that learning disability if you so choose. Not forced, but choice. I mean, so yeah, the National Department of Education has a lot of really weird rules. I mean, they are the reason why that pilot project was conducted. They are the reason why that was never continued.
Well, because it was working.
As I say, I personally thought it was a great success, because when you're sitting next to another 8-year-old who is doing 5th grade work and you're not, you're going to want to start competing with that child. And it's like, most children don't turn around and say, oh, that's too hard for me. They want to know, how do you do that?
That's the natural progressions, last time I checked, versus, like you said, keeping the lid on them.
Yeah, and it's just not right. So yeah, there's a place for the National Department of Education, but I think they should only do recommendations and not mandates.
Okay.
I just got one question about, I was a really big proponent of splitting up the school district, just like what you were talking about. But then I've had a couple of people talk to me, so I'm kind of on the fence about it now. And the reason why is because they were like, if you think Clark County School District is top-heavy, now you're going to create that kind of bureaucracy in all the different towns. So now you're actually going to create more administrative positions and cost the taxpayers more. If you broke it up, how would you make sure that it just doesn't become like, say, the city of Las Vegas, it's its own school district, doesn't just become another micro-organism of what the CCSD is now?
Because the school board is elected by their community. If they are not doing what they're supposed to do, the community has an obligation to change it. And if they don't want to change it, then they get what they deserve.
Okay. That's fine.
Anything else? Well, then we can just kind of move on then. We can move right on into taxes then. The voters overwhelmingly defeated the margins tax.
Yes, they did.
And then our last legislature, all those rhinos up there, decided to jump on the bandwagon, and they passed, what was it called? The commerce tax, which my cousin led the way, Derek Armstrong. I'm still pissed off at him about that.
You want people to know about that?
Yeah, I do. And would you back a plan to get rid of the margins tax and look at something else? Because I'm telling you, I know what it's doing to the business that I work at, and the problems we're having. And yet the Faradays and the Teslas and all those get all the free rides. So what would your plan be to try and smooth that over or get rid of that tax, and how would you think we would get that done?
I would love to get rid of that tax. I don't know that it will ever happen, unfortunately, because once you have a tax, I mean, it's historically it's never been done. Once a tax is created, it's never undone. I learned that in 2009 when they did the sunset tax that did not sunset. The only time I've ever seen any tax get somewhat of a drawer was in 2003 with Bob Beers, city councilman now. Used to be Senator Bob Beers, and he was one of the holdouts on Governor Gwynn's largest tax increase in Nevada.
At
that time. And he believed that it wasn't needed. So even though the Supreme Court allowed it to go forward, his holdout caused him a lot of grief, but he stuck to his guns, and as a result, at the end of the year, when he was proven right, everybody who owned a car got a rebate on their car registrations.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was because of Senator Bob Beers.
So, Mel, I guess the last question I got for you as far as taxes. So, yeah, we know we had tax increase last legislative session. Tick Sagerblum's been on the show and has actually said that they're going to ask for more this year.
They are.
Because of the state exchange. And that because we still got the state exchange, but now our time with the federal government's not going to give us any money for it.
Are you talking about the Affordable Care Act?
Yeah,
Okay.
in the state exchange, where I believe the arrangement was for the first 2 years of that program,
Correct.
the federal government
would subsidize.
Would subsidize like 80% of it, and so now this will be the third year, and they're not going to subsidize anything. So that's what, and Tick Sagerblum was really honest to say that he was going to use that specifically to push for it, and so I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that, and I'm going to ask you one last loaded question. I just want to know how you and Hambrick's relationship is now.
I haven't talked to Assemblyman Hambrick in over a year, and I certainly was not invited to his Christmas party last year.
Yeah. But me either. I don't go to those anymore.
You know, I'm not going to fault him for what he did.
Right.
I don't know what the budget looks like. I really have no idea if this was necessary. The thing that made me the most angry about the last legislation was not necessarily the tax increase, but the way it was handled. It was my way or the highway, and there were no alternatives to look at. I mean, they were not even allowed to introduce alternatives. Dan Schwartz and Ron Connect, our comptroller and treasurer, both attempted, and they vilified them to no end. It just never ended. I think people will accept tax increases if they believe that that money is being spent where it needs to be spent, and if they believe that they have exhausted all other alternatives. But when you're told that we're raising your taxes and you just need to suck it up and we're not going to accept anything else, that's when people start to question the validity of the tax increase. We have bond initiatives. Metro got their raises through the voters of Las Vegas.
Melanie, I hate to cut you.
You cut me off.
Cut you off. I just want to ask you one final question before the board operator puts the commercial on. But you and I have known each other for how long now?
2006, 2005.
Yeah, so 11 years. 11 years?
Yeah.
And we sat on the Clark County Executive Board. In fact, the three of us
Yes,
did.
with Jim Jonas.
And including Richard Scotty, who's
And
now
Richard, yes.
judge. And I've always valued your opinion on matters. That's why you were chapter president of Veterans in Politics. But and it's disheartening to know that you want to suspend your
I don't want to.
I understand.
But
I understand. You want to suspend your candidacy for assembly. I know you don't want to. And right now, you sit in as a JEA at the Regional Justice Center for Judge Scotty. So I don't even know if you could even answer this question, but as an assembly candidate, you can. But but as a JEA, maybe you can't. So you're kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place. But the question is, how do you feel about nepotism on the bench? And that's a
You know
problem.
what, I'm going to go back to it. It is an elected position.
Right.
I realize the person that you're referring to was appointed, and
Right.
you and I have gone, we have bashed candidates up and down because they always want to run against an appointed candidate, and we know the application is very, very lengthy. And
You don't think
they
that lengthy
turn
application was
around-
political?
I'm sure, I think all applications are political. I mean,
Okay.
you apply for a job, it's political, period. It's up to the people. They have to vote.
How does Melanie Howard feel about it?
Melody Howard is going to keep her mouth shut.
Oh, gee whiz.
First time, Melanie Howard's gonna keep her mouth shut up, Joe.
Yeah.
So, Melanie, could you give the listeners? Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for inviting me.
And could you give the listeners your point of contact and how they could get a hold of you?
My email address is mhowardlv11@gmail.com, and my cell phone is 702-400-6021.
That's, folks, that's Melanie Howard, who's a candidate for, I'm confused if she's a candidate now, for
Well, I haven't moved yet, so I am still a candidate, but once I move, I will withdraw.
Okay, with that, from Nevada State Assembly District 14, this is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas, and Troy Warren, Veterans of Politics. But folks, don't go away. We're going to have Owen Carver, who's a candidate for Nevada State Assembly District number 2.